Welcome to the Nutritional and Wellness Tips for Menopausal Women show. I'm Michelle, a life designer coach, nutritional therapist, a leader in run fitness, health enthusiast, mum of two, and entrepreneur of this wonderful show. Through this podcast, I bring wisdom and experiences from inspirational people, holistic well-being partners, and from within my own life journey, because I truly want to unravel the complexities and support you around the globe to elevate your health and well-being. Together, we can work and open opportunities to live the life you want to lead and feel empowered to fly to great heights. Now, this week, you're in for a real treat, and I am just super excited. We're going to speak to Fee, who is hoping to share with you, or she will share with you, about her experience of her coaching journey with me, the wonderful me. So without further ado, I would like everybody to put their hands together and welcome Fee to the show.
Hello.
Hello. So welcome. It's lovely to see you. Let's kick off. Tell us what sort of like drew you into coaching with me. And just sort of like share your bit of your experience at the start, middle, and end, really. And I might have to ask you a few questions.
Okay, so when I was approached by my friend Tanya, and she said, my friend is training, would you like some coaching? Not counselling, which was great because been there and done that, but coaching, would you like to do it? I thought, do you know what? Why not? Give it a go, see where we go. And when we first met, I was a bit unsure, not going to lie. I was a bit like, oh, I don't know. First 5 minutes, I was like, oh. And then do you know what? I'm going to go with this and I'm going to see where it can take me. And it really I didn't expect to enjoy it as much as I did and get so much out of it, which is why for me, I just think it has been a game changer for me.
So you didn't really come then. I'm just hearing you didn't come with a specific sort of set goal that you wanted to address with coaching. And so I suppose like through the experience, what sort of transpired? What came to you? What sort of like did it open the opportunities? What did you believe was impossible before we made possible?
Okay, so I think in my head, I was so intent on, I want to buy a house, I want to buy a house. That was one of the things. But actually, I think what I've learned, and I still do want to buy a house, that is where I'm wanting to do. But I think for me, what it did was it changed the wanting to buy a house to actually I just want to live in a house. I don't have to own a house. And I think that for me took away the fear of not, like, if you want to do these things, it's the fear, oh, I can't do it. There's this reason and that. And you just kept saying to me, what's the worst that could happen? And I think for me, the goal that I thought was I'm intent on buying a house was more about other things going on in my life. Whereas actually it's about, I still want to buy a house, obviously, and that is my aim. But more for me, it's about the succeeding, the doing it myself, the actual motivation to get off and do it and actually face that fear. So I think it changed from want to buy a house and I've got to buy a house to actually, if I don't buy a house, but I live in a house, that's equally as good as long as I get there through my own volition. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. And it's wonderful to hear because, I mean, can you just briefly elaborate on what sort of like techniques that you learned along the way? Because I think what I'm hearing and I think it's important is that there was a perception that came and some self-limiting beliefs that I think we all are inherent from, because we get our beliefs from growing up, from our parents, from our grandparents, from media, the internet, the social media these days, and there is a belief, and sometimes I feel, and certainly from my own experience, that just really, really hampers the vision. And from what I'm hearing is some of the techniques we use just really open that and explored more of those self-limiting beliefs.
One of the things that you asked me to do, I mean, I've had homework, obviously, every week. We had an action plan at the end, which was great because it does focus you. because you can plod along through life and not notice the little things. But one of the things that I remember doing with you was you asked me to write a list of things that I've accomplished on my own. And that was like an epiphany. It was like a light bulb moment, because for me, when I look back, obviously I'm a single parent. You know, I've travelled. There's things that I look back on the list that I wrote, and it was quite a long list in the end. And it ended up, highlighting, God, I've done loads of really good things in my life, but I'm not giving it the recognition it deserves. I've raised a tiny human up until the age of 10 with, she's got a great mind, she's kind, all of those things. But it just made me look at the list and go, God, I have done amazing things. And I'm so grateful that I wrote it down. I've still got the journal, I'm still writing it. I've actually filled the book and started another one. But that alone, just doing that list, and if ever there's a wobble or a doubt, I go back to the list and go, look, I've done all this. And that for me has been so empowering. And also I wrote a list, we wrote a list of accomplishments that you've done in 2023. And that, I've got my vision board here, so I've still got my list of what I've done. And then I've also written goals for next year. And I think just by having the focus and turning off what I call like the white noise, the social media, like the stuff that you're taking in subliminally from everything around you, just by sort of quietening that down and really focusing, I think has made me more motivated. And also, you always used to say to me, what's the worst that could happen? What's the worst that could happen? So what if you did that? And that for me has sort of broken that wall of fear. I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. And that is the biggest transformation. I used to be quite sedentary when I got home, because obviously I'm in an office all day, drop my daughter. Now I get home, I work out for one. So I go for a long walk. I've got a treadmill, so I walk on my treadmill every night. But what I do is I learn. So I learn stuff. I sit and I read, and I make sure that I do all of that. And actually got more energy than I ever had before. But I am so motivated. And I think for me, coaching has just brought everything into focus that I need. And all the other stuff has sort of not fallen away, but it's not as important to me. So it's the focus for me and the motivation.
I think just to elaborate on that, and please share your feelings on this, is I think it's not about that specific goal. Like, you've got a tangible goal that you're going for. Do you want to share a bit more about the other sort of, like, I suppose, holistic, you've touched on it briefly, the holistic benefits that you're now having and you're finding that you can do in everyday life? And as you said, you do a bit of exercise, you eat healthily, you're taking time out for yourself, you're doing the breathing. And these are all tools and techniques I think, we've talked about. And what's been the benefit for those on yourself and your relationships? I think relationships with yourself, relationships with others.
Do you know what? I think it sounds so. I am doing more for myself, which is great, and I'm learning to do more for myself, obviously being a lone parent. But for me, I have got back to, at the end of each day, writing down 3 things that have gone well and going to bed on a positive note. And I'm going to bed earlier as well, which is great. So no screens after a certain time, but writing down the 3 positive things that have happened today. And one of the questions I ask, who has done something to make me happy today? So I'm focusing on someone else's kindness as well. So I do that. And then when I go to bed, I put magnesium on my feet now as well, which just seems to, I sleep all the way through. The first thing I do when I get up in the morning is I set my intention for the day. So I pick up the journal and I write what I want out of today, how I want my day to go. I don't plan my day, but, like a couple of words. And that sort of grounds me as soon as I get up, and then I do a little walk. But for me, I think I've made time for myself, which I had forgotten to do. I had got into, got to cook dinner, I've got to clear up, I've got to do this, then I'd sit and watch telly and mindless stuff and I think what for me has been the biggest benefit is it's okay to sit and read a book for half an hour. It's okay if, the washing up takes sits there for an hour. Do you know, it's okay to spend that time, because what I'm getting out of that time, and I've been doing a lot of like yoga nidras at night and things like that. It's okay to spend that time. And what I have noticed, which is really interesting, is my daughter's coming up 10, which is a lovely age, but we have not had, I've not had to tell her off. I haven't raised my voice much. You know, it's just been very plain sailing, because I think where I'm so focused and so happy, because I'm filling my mind and my body with good energy. So I've also, stupidly, I bought a blender.
Nice.
And I thought, if I'm doing my body, like my mind and all of that, I want to be healthy as well. And I don't drink very often now, which is great, but I am doing ginger shots every day, having celery juice. And I think it's the whole, I've never had so much energy. I'm 50 this year. And I've always been a bit like, oh, so tired, I just want to sit down. Actually, I'm not craving sweet things, but I think it's everything has fallen into place at the right time. But I do think it's because my mindset's changed. That's why.
And it's the
So where,
mindset that's key.
yeah, and I think, I mean, don't get me wrong. I think what we did through our coaching and having that coaching, it was like going through all the cobwebs to get out the other side and opening. It was like seeing the light, because for me, it's like I've just shed my skin. I just am very focused and very different. And my friends, funnily enough, have said to me, "You just seem so happy, so content, like very." I can't describe it, but just very happy, very content, but very focused, which I've needed, because I've sort of not is it procrastinated a lot. Oh, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. And
Yeah.
actually now it's like, you're not getting any younger. You know the tools. Go back to your list. You know, the journaling aspect of what we did, you know, writing down stuff and how I feel about stuff has been really good, because I've become freer in what I say to people. I know that sounds, I'm not being rude to people, but if someone asks me for an honest opinion, I'm okay to give my honest opinion now and not feel like, so I just think I'm just freer with it all. I think that's what it's done for me.
I think that's absolutely beautiful to hear, because your journey with me was totally inspirational. And I think it was so nice to see the changes and the impact that coaching had on you, and not just you, but your daughter as well. And, you know, I think that's just amazing. I suppose, what is next? What do you feel is for you and your purpose and your journey now? You're coming up to a big birthday. You've learned a lot in a short space time. You've got some great tools from coaching. Where do you think this will take you in the future?
Well, I've always been very settled in my job, because obviously I help people in what I do at the moment, and I still love my job. I don't get me wrong, but what coaching has done for me has opened my eyes to other opportunities and other ways to not only help other people, but to also help me and my daughter keep moving in some respects. So I've learned to be a bit freer, because I've always not budgeted, but I have obviously single parent, one salary. I've always thought, oh, we can't do that. I think what it's made me realise is it's still okay to live, and it's okay to go and, you know, splurge on a you know, go out for dinner or something. But it's made me a bit freer like that. But for the future, I think what it's done for me is just really open my eyes to, I can do this, and taken that fear of almost failure. Oh, I don't want to try something that's going to fail. I don't care now. Like, if it does fail, it fails. I will just go forward and keep moving forward, because I keep going back to that phrase, what's the worst that can happen? What's the worst that can happen? And that is my sort of mantra in my head. What's the worst that can happen? You try and you try. So for me, it's the lack of fear now. So I think anything's possible for me and my daughter. I mean, we live a very happy life anyway. We were talking about it this morning, actually, and saying how blessed we are, because we do live a very happy life. But for us, I just see us. Obviously, I've registered a business, which I'm going to start doing, which is unbelievable. Never thought I'd be doing that. But just experiencing life, because we don't want a lot of material things. We're not like that, you know. I'd like a garden, but apart from that, there's not a lot that I want. But for me, it's always been never quite going to get there. It's always out of reach. Whereas now, it just feels so tangible. I can taste it. I can feel it. It's like I'm running towards it. Whereas before, I was kind of like, oh, I'm running away from it. So now I'm embracing it, and that is, I think, taking away the fear. But having that in my head, what's the worst that can happen? You know, that. And the journaling, I think, for me. Because when you look at your life, you know, we all plod along and do what we're doing. But when you actually sit down and strip back and look at what you want, where you are, what you've achieved, you don't give yourself, especially women, I think, are, you know, all the work that you do at home is unseen, the cooking, the cleaning, the washing, the ironing. It's not, you're not paid a wage for it. So I think we just sort of go with it. But actually, when you look, there's a new research that's come out that they say being a parent is like doing two jobs, you know, two full-time jobs and work, you know, that's a lot. And I think I feel like my eyes have been blinkered and now they're open, and I love that feeling. So I'm very grateful.
And that's beautiful, because there's a lot of stuff, I think, a lot of comments that I hear is, I'm too busy to be healthy. And I'm like, is that the case? Is that really? And obviously, you know, as you know, I am working, I am doing coaching, I'm a run coach, nutritional therapist, I'm a podcaster, and I want to thrive and help and create a more support community within the menopause. And a lot of people say to me, how do you do it? I think it's the passion and the drive that help do it. And I think anybody can achieve a goal, but looking back and going, well, what have I achieved? And recognizing and certainly giving yourself a kudos, you know, giving yourself a hug to say, actually, I'm doing all right. And I think that's something a lot of us, you know, males and females, really, really like doing, of saying, yeah, I'm doing all right.
I think that's so important. So important.
I suppose really, just before we wrap up, I tend to say, what key message, what heart flare have you got that for the listeners now that may be going, okay, I'm loving what I'm hearing about the results. Coaching may be something for me. You know, what would you say to them? What would you look now or say to your younger self now that you could share with our listeners?
Oh, that's a really good question, if I'm honest. Like, if I was young again, I wish I'd done this at an earlier age, the coaching side of it. I really do. Because you imagine if you could take what you've got now, how I feel now, and be 18, 20, you could conquer the world. You could be doing things that you've always wanted to do, but you're held back. So I think for me, I wish I'd done it earlier. Anyone that is umming and ahhing about doing it because they're like, oh, I'm too old, I'm setting, anyone can go and do it, but I would embrace it and go with it feet first. I wouldn't go in scared. I would definitely go in and embrace the journey, because I mean, I thought you had two heads when you said write down your achievements, because I was thinking I haven't done anything. That's what I thought at first. So I think just embrace it, go with it, and love every minute of it, because it is a gift. And it was a gift, and it's still continuing to be a gift for me, because I'm going in places and I never thought I would. So yeah, I just wish I had done it earlier.
Lovely.
But at least I've done it.
At least you've done it. Age is
Yeah.
not a thing. Okay.
I know.
Some of the world's most famous people started in their 40s. Okay, and are living the life they want to lead. I
Yeah.
think the beauty of what we've heard is it's not just about achieving a goal. It is looking at you holistically and giving the tools that you can continue forward. And it is just beautiful. And I thank you from the bottom of my heart that you have taken some time out just to share with myself and my listeners the benefits of working and coaching. So
Thank you.
listeners, If you are hearing this message, you've listened to the entire episode, and for that, I do want to thank you from the bottom of my heart. I've hoped you'd enjoyed this episode, and if you did, please leave me a review, or go onto my website, connect with me via email, and share your views and comments. Again, share this podcast and let's grow this message across the world. And do feel free, social media, Instagram, YouTube, join the party to tell me what future episodes you would like me to cover. And I will put my coaching details in the show notes. And as always, I thank you all for being here, for elevating your health and well-being. And I will see you next week for another episode.